Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, Mr. President, the Director of National Intelligence is a very critical position. The Director is the primary intelligence officer serving the President. She or he is tasked with managing America's 18 intelligence community agencies and more than $100 billion in national and military intelligence program budgets. It's an awesome responsibility. The DNI also has access to information about literally the most sensitive programs within the United States government. These programs are so sensitive that most members of Congress and senators are not briefed about them, including even rank and file members of the intelligence committees. That alone indicates the magnitude of this responsibility. My view, on the basis of everything I've seen, is that the nominee will put loyalty to Donald Trump first, and my apprehension is that if there is information that he does not want or wants it interpreted a certain way, there'll be excessive deference to the pressures that the President has shown. He has the capacity and the inclination to insert. Also, in the hearings, Ms. Gabbard did not reflect independent thoughts about the security of issues like Taiwan, the territorial integrity of Ukraine, nor the endless ongoing theft of U.S. data by the Chinese government. She was asked quite rightly, where are you on these? What should we be doing? What she indicated is she'd leave that up to Donald Trump. Now, I get it that as someone who is serving the President, it's ultimately his decision. But a person who is in the highest level of national security, I would expect, would have opinions from prior experience. And Ms. Gabbard did not disclose what those opinions were at all. My concern as well is that Ms. Gabbard does not have the sober experience where it's needed most. We're a few weeks into the second term of President Trump, and there's an immense amount of disruption. And depending on the point of view, disruption is a good thing. I actually see the argument for it. But what I'm seeing is that it's done in such a meat cleaver way. It's much more about destruction. And I want to make certain that whoever is the Director of National Intelligence has the experience and the credibility within the intelligence community to defend the legitimate role that that intelligence community plays in our national security. Ms. Gabbard has maintained a security clearance for many years. However, this job is much more than about having had a security clearance. It's about judgment and character and integrity that must go along with that. You're required to form a clear-eyed policy position free of politics and not just give the seal of approval to absolve poor judgment. That's a very, very challenging task for a person who serves in the Trump administration. I have also been concerned about some of the judgment calls that Ms. Gabbard has made, refusing to acknowledge what we all know. Edward Snowden broke his oath to protect classified information. Edward Snowden betrayed the trust given to him and every other American who holds a security clearance. And by the way, Mr. Snowden had a whistleblower protocol he could have followed, but chose not to. People's lives were put in jeopardy. Mr. Snowden, as you know, intentionally gathered and deliberately walked out the door with more than 1.5 million classified files. He went to China and eventually found safe harbor in Russia. Also, I have some concern about where Ms. Gabbard is getting her news. I have grave concerns that giving access to our nation's most tightly held secrets to an individual who has amplified Russian talking points, and that is the spread of misinformation. That's what Russia does, and who watches Russia's state-owned TV, which is a propaganda organ. I have concerns about that, as well as the trip to Syria to see Bashar al-Assad, who was in the process of murdering his own people. And of course, Ms. Gabbard said she was skeptical that his government was responsible for the 2017 chemical weapons attack that killed dozens of Syrians. Our intelligence community was not skeptical about that. Both sides of the aisle hold our national security in high regard, as you do, Mr. President, and I do as well. On the basis of the lack of experience, the questionable judgment, lack of confidence that I think many of us have in the capacity of this person to be the Director of National Intelligence, I urge that we vote no on her nomination. With that, I yield back. Thank you, Mr. President.